Veterans make up about 31% of the federal workforce, which hasn't changed since 2014. The Interagency Veterans Advisory Council is looking to boost that number while tackling issues of retention and attrition. Terry Gerton is president and CEO of the National Academy of Public Administration. She's former Deputy Assistant Secretary for Policy for the Veterans Employment and Training Services at the Department of Labor. Terry, welcome. How are you?
Good morning, Mimi. I'm great, and thank you for letting me talk about a topic that is so near and dear to my heart.
So, as I mentioned, it's 31%, which is almost a third. That seems kind of like a good number.
Well, I think 31% is a great number. We can always do better, but veterans are such an important piece of our federal government system. They come in knowing so much, and they're such great additions to any team that they join. So anything that we can do to make the federal employment system and federal employment more welcoming to veterans is a good thing. It also makes the federal system better for everybody.
I want to ask you real quick about military spouses because, sometimes they do have a hard time because of all the moving around that they have to do and their spouses on active duty, about employment opportunities within the federal government for them.
Well, that's true. Military spouses have this same sorts of resiliency and adaptability as their military member, right? But they do face that particular challenge of having to move on a regular basis. And that's why the Military Spouse Non-Competitive Appointing Authority in Title V allows federal agencies to appoint certain military spouses without using traditional competitive examining authority. And DoD also has special hiring authority so that they can bring spouses into positions directly on military bases. And so the majority of the spouses, at least those who are identified as such in the federal system, do work in the DoD and defense locations. But it's an important opportunity, and we need to make sure that more spouses are aware of it and that more agencies are aware of it to take advantage of that opportunity.
So what skills do you think, Terry, that veterans uniquely have that benefit the government's mission and the workforce?
Well, the same characteristics that make veterans attractive in the private sector make them attractive government employees, right? They're high quality people. They have to meet military recruiting standards. They're a highly diverse population. They come from across the country and across every demographic group. They have world-class technical training that they get from their military service, and that makes them especially adaptable to a number of kind of government positions. But they also, because of military service and because they're working so closely in teams and in challenging situations, they bring that resourcefulness and initiative that you want, where people are creative and have new kinds of thoughts. And they're incredibly dedicated to the mission. That's one of the things I think that attracts veterans to government service.
Not to mention their leadership skills as well.
Exactly.
But okay, so they're very attractive to the private sector as well. So what can incentivize veterans to stay in government instead of moving to the private sector?
Well, I think we need to have reasonable expectations. There is a significant adjustment coming from a military work environment into any civilian work environment, whether that's in the private sector or the public sector. And so there are some best practices that help to mitigate that. One of the first things that a receiving organization can do is make sure that they understand the military culture and that they are accommodating for that. Not that they have to be a military culture, but they just need to kind of understand where a veteran is coming from. And then assignment of a mentor or making sure that that veteran gets connected into a team and has membership feeling with an organization, being very intentional about training and skill development, not just for the job, but for adaptation into the organization and how it works so that they know what to expect. Very direct engagement of a supportive manager who's working with that veteran, who understands them and is there to help them succeed, and a vision of what a career trajectory would look like so that they know kind of what's coming down the road. What we found over time in any kind of civilian work environment was that those kinds of practices really helped get a veteran situated so that they knew what to expect and helped them to be successful. And when they're successful, they're more likely to stay.
Yeah, drill down a little bit more on the attrition rate. What do we know about that? Are veterans, once they come into the federal government, are they staying until retirement? What do we know about that?
Well, I think one of the things that we see, of course, is veterans tend to come into the civilian workforce a little bit older, and especially if they're coming into government having retired from the military already, which you can do it at a fairly young age. They retire again from federal service, and so there is that kind of turnover. There's also sort of a more natural fit for veterans into government service. It's a place they understand a little bit better than the private sector. So they may come, get their feet on the ground, and then move either for another government job or for a private sector job. And again, I think we need to be realistic about that. It's a huge transition. It's hard to get it right the first time. And so the more that we can support their adjustment and adaptation to that new position, the more successful they're going to be, whether they stay with you particularly there or they move to other opportunities. And frankly, one of the things we saw in the data that we looked at is they get promoted faster because once they do get adjusted and situated in that new position in the government, they move up pretty quickly. And that may mean that they leave your organization and go somewhere else. And we should celebrate that.
All right. Well, Terry, thanks so much. I appreciate you being on the program.
Mimi, thanks for having me.